Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is enjoying the sessions since morning. Now we are in another panel where we have esteemed panelists who are going to talk about the impact of AI and LLMs on QA automation. So in the morning panel discussion, we spoke where QA is going with the coming AI, LLMs, and all of that. Now we're going to specifically talking more about the automation aspect of it. So with that, I'll start with the introductions. Myself, Pushpinder Malhotra, who's going to moderate this session, and we'll go with Greg.
Thank you, Pushpinder. My name is Greg Santo. I lead the quality engineering platform at Sun Life, and my team and I are accountable for delivering all of the QE capabilities that our software validation professionals use day in and day out. Thank you.
Parasar.
Thank you, Pushpinder, for having me here. My name is Parasar Shah. I'm the founder CEO of DG4. We are a cloud engineering company. We build a universal cloud. And 25 something about me, 25 years into this whole industry, grown from testers, test lead, now an entrepreneur in that space. Pretty much sit in all the four corners of the table, being a tester to a lead of leading the organization to somebody who is actually selling and build the product. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Parasar. Suresh, over to you.
Thanks, Pushpinder. I'm Shirish Deshpande, founder and CEO of a startup company based out of Halifax, SwiftTech Software Testing Services. It's all around software testing services. I like to do all sort of technical stuff where I can learn and participate. And in the last almost close to 2 decades, that's what my practice is. I try to at least keep up to that practice, and I'm looking forward to this panel discussion.
Thank you. Alrighty. So with all of that, let's get started. So my first question is to Parasar. Parasar, tell us more about the LLMs that are going on in the industry. What are various LLMs that are available to us, and how are they impacting the QA industry, QA automation in general?
Great question. I think we start with LLM, so that's what the buzz in the industry is like. So if you look at the LLM, the industry has grown significantly. Where we were initially kind of when we talked about AI a couple of years back, we were talking about ML models, right? Now, when we are talking about AI, we are primarily looking at LLMs. So in LLM world, there are different types of LLM. Okay, firstly, you can classify them as some which are proprietary LLMs, like ChatGPT. You have Gemini. Those are the proprietary ones, and then you have the open source LLM. Right? And there is another way of classifying it, is that you can look at it from an open source perspective, and all of us know there was the new open source LLM which just dropped in, creating a huge kind of star in the market. So there's an open source LLM, and and there are large LLM and a small size LLM, right? Okay, now it's not small, but it's not that big. So it's kind of large LLM, which are deployable LLM. So there are different types you can actually do. So over the time, the LLMs have become powerful ways that you can get out of box things that you can use in QA. Now, Q area, there are several areas that you can, I'll talk about 2 areas that we see there's a huge traction in the industry when we talk to our clients globally, especially one that the area that we see the top of people's mind in the QA industry is, can we generate test cases? And LLMs are really great in generating stuff, given some background, they can. So there are a number of tools which are coming in that space. I think when you look at the unit testing, right, significant amount of unit tests today's world is created by LLMs and AI models, right? Okay, that area is kind of becoming much and much more close to AI driven thing. When it comes to functional, that's a space it is evolving, and there are different options in the industry that is coming through. The success of that area, that when you go to functional, because you're not on one area anymore, it's not a component testing. You're looking at a different functionality to interact with each other and kind of give you something. It also depends on the user interaction, right? So it also depends not only just the LLM, but how much data you can actually collate, how many systems you can actually bring everything together. So in that space, it is evolving in the and one of the good thing I will say, just to give you in some perspective in terms of numbers, right? If you look at GPT-3, they were around 175 billion parameter. Now this GPT-4 is trillions of parameters. So the amount of knowledge it has is tremendous. So that itself gives you an out of box thing that it can do. On the other side, when you bring LLM, a part of it is a training. You have to train the LLM to generate something. In generation, like where you use tokens, that pricing is also coming down. So basically, that means your power to give intelligence to the LLM is also training the LLM is also increasing. Like, you probably heard that, these days, like the new LLM that was
DeepSeek.
developed, like, that
Yeah.
brought down the cost to like, 1/10, right?
Fractions. Yes. Yeah.
Amazing, right? We are so excited that, okay, we can train more. So
Right.
it's a combination of these two that will actually make it much more powerful going into this the functional area. Again, there'll be more generation in terms of like, performance, data and things.
Right.
I think that's where we're going to be. And we're very excited to see how the clients are using it. They're finding values and they're scaling up, making their operational efficiency much higher using AI on the generation part. Now, moving to the reporting part, one other thing we see that there's some of these clients that we work with sometime back, they were kind of like, the clients who was doing only few hundreds of automation, they are now doing thousands of automation. They're scaled up. It's not just because they were rushed to do the automation mode, but the functionality has scaled up.
Yeah.
So companies who were doing thousands are in tens of thousands now. So the number of failures that is happening, number of things to analyze is increasing tremendously. Now, it's humanly become very difficult to get to everything in certain amount of time. So no matter how you generate, if you cannot analyze, you're just still have a backlog. So that's also another space where anomaly detection, like, how logs are analyzed, right? LLM is been doing a lot of work helping organizations to find to the root cause. There are some metrics called the MTTR, mean time to like resolve, and mean time to detect, MTTD, is becoming much more efficient these days. So these are the areas I would say, like, LLMs are impacting and they're doing a great job. We're still not there, but I think the future is looking bright.
It was very nicely summarized. Yeah, with DeepSeek coming in, who knows where the world is going now? Like we have much more computational power at such a less cost. Let's see where it goes.
Absolutely.
Any comments, Greg, Suresh?
Oh, I think Parsar gave a fantastic summary of the value that we're going to start to see coming out of this, and I can't add anything to that. That was really great.
Yeah, I think, 2 points I really like what Parasar had highlighted. I guess the last one, which he spoke about anomalies, I guess that consumes a lot of time for a tester or for an engineering team, identifying, what is the bottleneck or what caused an issue or a bug. And second is, if the price of a token is declining, then I guess that's exciting because, resource consumption is one of the challenges in all this, high computing powers models. And I believe, if that is being addressed, I guess that's an exciting news.
Yeah, that's what I think we were all waiting for. When is that cost going to drop down? We are seeing that already. Great. All right. I think with that, Shirish, if you can shed some light on like how are you actually using these in the real-time scenario? Like are we theoretically understand, okay, they can do this, but can you give us some examples? How are you putting them into a practical use?
Absolutely. I think, using different LLMs, I mean, right before 2 years back, when, ChatGPT came in picture, people started discussing about all this. There was an excitement that, it generates something. And then, it got plugged into automation tools, which are, popular in the industry. I have been using it for mostly API testing, where, the robustness of generative AI or LLMs like Postbot with Postman or with GitHub, there is a bot which is integrated, very well integrated. It helps in terms of bringing in a different perspective, because LLM has got such a huge data and the compilation happens. So you think as a tester from one perspective, and if you try to write a prompt, which is so you need to write a prompt which LLMs could actually give you a right output with. So if somebody is good into writing a nice and apt prompt, LLMs are quite helpful. I have seen that it produces a different approach. For example, I am writing a code of hundreds of lines or 50 lines, say, and I would like to still make it like consuming less number of bytes, or I would like to make it more readable, for example. Either of the examples would work in this case. And if you just write a prompt, please give me this in 50 or 25 lines of code. It will compile your code and give you a beautiful piece. I think it's a fun way to look at it. At the same time, it helps you in reducing some lines. In the review process, it helps, so that if somebody is a reviewer and he has to analyze less number of lines, it helps overall. And for a tester, it's very important. It's bridging a gap between dev and QA or tester is another thing I have observed with DevOps or DevSecOps. It produces an opportunity for developers to come closer to testing and add or give another perspective that how testers could think of. Obviously, testers would have more I would say dimensions in terms of thinking the scenarios or adding more parameters to the checks typically done by generative AI. But I think it's all in all it's exciting. That's my understanding.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing the tools, like the commercial tools, they are hooking up to actually read the Swagger files and auto-generate those test scripts. That's cool, right? And creating that data
They,
set and everything.
we are talking about that in one of the opportunities I've been working with. There is
Yeah,
an end-to-end automation. So when we speak about that, hooking up of my API scripts to GitHub and having end-to-end automation in a real sense. So we have been talking about that. It's happening. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens. But from a generative AI perspective, that bot is developing capabilities to create that end-to-end flow
yeah.
and helping or supporting testers. I believe it's going to help definitely. I'm excited, as I said earlier as well.
It's there. I've seen it actually, our the tool that we use, Parasoft, they have actually implemented this and they're reading the Swagger files and generating the test scripts. So it's wonderful to see how, we are changing, how we are evolving in this AI world. Yeah.
One of the challenges is apart from API, I have tested some of the tools on the UI automation. I think there the challenge is, where they talk about, fixing some of the scripts on the fly and having autocorrect option. And there are a number of checkbox there. So I have evaluated those tools just for the sake of, learning those tools. And obviously I spoke to a lot of people to present my analysis, where obviously the challenge of, fixing the scripts on the fly still seems to be
I think that's an
challenge.
early,
It's
yeah,
quite early to
yes.
comment on that. That's going to be fun thing. I guess people are not talking about agentic AI. So I'm excited that the
Yeah.
challenges which are highlighted are present in the current models. I'm hoping with agentic AI those challenges would be addressed to a larger extent.
Yeah, yeah. Agentic AI is going to be 2025, right? We have one session as well where Jonathan is going to present about that. But yeah, we'll take on that. Greg, any comments?
Well, I am personally very excited about agentic AI and what that's going to bring to the tool set. I just want to just play off a little bit of what Shirish said, and that is there's so much going on in the world. Our partners are adopting AI and putting it into their tools. There are other companies in the field that want to bring these capabilities to us. And I think an important thing that we try to remember is to pick the sorts of problems we want to solve. And I think for me, problems around complexity that our teams deal with, complexity and speed, are fantastic places. And I think Suresh pointed to one of those. I think about having 500 or 1,000 regression tests that have been automated. And how do you get an individual to manage through that and find the overlaps and prune it down, or needing to understand test scope very quickly for a quick release and looking at code changes or looking at requirement changes and very quickly giving us scope. So I think complexity and speed will really help our people by taking care of those things and leaving more of the analysis up to them. So I'm quite excited about those two areas. I share that excitement.
Sounds good. You're on mute, person.
Yeah, so I think like Suresh, like his points were like right on, like what he was mentioning. Agentic AI, like we started implementing this in our product, right? We were doing Gen AI and doing ML, like but we thought of like what the step next, right? And I think that's the time when we looked at Agent AI. Okay, and it should be able to kind of connect the AI should be able to connect among themselves, do some operations and take the next step from there, right? Okay, that's very much we kind of like going there. And as the industry adapted, it's definitely going to be like helping in the efficiency. Now, so AI is another tool in your toolkit, right? It is another tool in your toolkit, right? And the end of the day. So any tool you see, like, from our history of QE tools, there are two sides of it. One is what is industry bringing to you on the table and how you're building that expertise in-house, right? No AI is going to be perfect all like day one, right? And it needs training, it needs stuff. How organizations are actually investing in building that capability in-house will also determine like next couple of years how they are ahead of the game compared to any other organizations in the QE space, right? It is very important we invest building that capability in-house, having data science people or training QEs to be no data science,
Yep.
no vector DBs. Like, how do you use like, different types of tokens and optimize token utilization on the runtime? That will help you to use it more effectively for your use case and bring more efficiency to that table.
Sounds good. Great conversation. With all of these great things, now I would like to ask Greg. Greg, share with us your experiences about the biases that you have seen, or have you come across any AI biases and that kind of impact our work?
Well, thank you, Pushpinder. That's a really interesting question. And Parasar just touched on, new technologies come in and we need to learn them over time and figure out how they work. And in thinking about this question, I've come up with a small example. I mean, obviously, in our organization, we're doing a lot of work baselining models and watching for drift and understanding what they do. So there's a lot of that work, but I had a very interesting small experience myself using our internal chatbot that I'll share with you, and then what I took from that, because it was actually, I think, a case of positive bias. And we think of bias as being negative, and it usually is. But so in our case, it was annual performance review time for our teams, and we get the 360 feedback, and of course, chatbots are fantastic at summarizing. So I gave it the big spreadsheet and said, summarize the feedback for all of the staff that we're doing reviews for. And it did a very nice job of that. And of course, we check, right? You go and you check and you think that makes sense. You look back at the source data, but it saves a lot of time. And then in parallel, I wrote my own feedback. And then I asked our chatbot to take my feedback and the 360 feedback from our colleagues and give me a summary. Again, it would have a time-consuming process, and the chatbot really helped. But what I found was that it was bumping up the adjectives used. So all of a sudden, my team members were coming back as being exceptional and exemplary and outstanding. I'm looking at a few of the words that I put on the screen here so I wouldn't forget them.
Mm.
And that surprised me. So what looks like what happened was it took good, strong. If I had somebody and it was good, strong, and my feedback was strong, it amplified that up to exceptional. And I thought it was interesting. And I think what it told me was that's a very small example and certainly wouldn't shut down any power grids or steer clients in the wrong direction. But what it told me was even on very simple summarizing tasks, we don't fully understand, or at least I don't fully understand, the way systems work, the way these LLMs work, and that we can't take anything for granted. I thought it was a cute little example, but it shows that even something like that, even summarizing good, got bumped up to great. I guess in the chatbot world, 3 goods equals great or something like that.
Yeah.
So watching for that, staying vigilant, and really not taking anything for granted is the takeaway I took from that small experience of bias.
Great example, yeah.
Yeah,
To understand and to explain. Thanks, Greg. Any
yeah,
comments?
my pleasure.
I think, Pushpinder, this is a question it needs a lot of kind of like, thought here. The biasness, we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. The reason is, what is QA? QA is the gatekeeper. Like, and no matter what, companies depend on us to make the software safe. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the moment we put that control on somebody, right, let the AI do that thing, at the same time, we have to make sure AI is tested well. Right. So there's a whole field. We are talking about how AI is helping testing, but there's a whole field that we have to think about is how we are testing the AI.
Right.
Greg mentioned one thing which is very critical here. The biasness that he was seeing probably was not impacting the power grid, but somebody may be using tomorrow this AI tools to test something on the power grid.
Yeah.
If something is missed out, that can have serious consequences.
Consequences. Yeah.
We have to understand how recalls work. Like the AI has very standard procedure, like very defined procedure. Recall, precision, F1 score. So we from a QE perspective have to understand. We from an organization perspective have to define those framework. What
Right.
is our like benchmark to adapt the AI into the enterprise?
Yeah.
Because a lot of enterprise clients are going to be using this AI and
Right.
rely on it. We need to make sure these are safe. We
Yeah.
don't reject them. We make them stronger, better, and safer.
100%.
Well, and I think the thing to remember is of course, as much as we love our human people,
Yeah.
humans aren't perfect either. Humans miss things, and defects make it out into production. So
Yeah.
I think what I'm agreeing with Parasar. What he's saying is it's both. What will AI do really well for us and close some of the gaps that humans miss? And what do humans still have to bring to this thing? Because AI is certainly not going to get it all, especially in the early days. And that's to Parasar's point, what every organization has to figure out and balance as it learns and adopts the technology.
I think that addresses the term where to use AI as your co-pilot, and it
Yeah.
can never be a pilot. So human is going to be the pilot, and AI is going to be the co-pilot. I guess
Very
that will
nicely
be
said.
the perfect blending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this brings me to, this another thought, another question. So organizations have to make that balance, but any tips on how should they, or how you guys are making that balance, right? Between humans and how much of AI we can use, and then how do we test? How much do we need to test? If you can shed some light on that.
That is a big question. Parasar, I feel like you go first. You go first.
Yeah, when it comes to testing, no matter whether AI testing or application testing, testing has no limit. It is true everywhere, right? Okay, this is the endless world of uncertainty. You cannot test enough. But what you have to understand, what is important for your customers, and the same fundamentals comes into the picture. So what is important for your customer? Do you know the customer domain well? That okay, when you are giving something to them, that framework is well built. I think it's a very deep thing that enterprise organizations have to understand. Then when they're building their COE, now they have to have a AI as a part of that COE. Who is defining this framework, who is defining a guardrail that AI is well tested before it is adopted. Even when they're bringing in new tools, they have the governance in place.
So how is our role? Sorry.
No, I'm just nodding my head. Go ahead, Pushpinder.
No, so this kind of, brings another question. So how is our role going to change, right? Like as testers, is there anything that we need to kind of learn,
I think
adopt?
I think I would like to based on my thinking, I believe we need to see where is the need and
Mm-hmm.
then apply AI there. Because I'm working with a domain where the processes I'm following or the tools I'm using, they're perfectly going fine. Or
Mm-hmm.
the size of the organization matters a lot. If you are having huge QA teams, large size organizations or mid size or small, too small, because ultimately everything boils down to investment and the returns on that. So I believe and on top of that, what Parasar said, it is driven by the need of client. So if one can, have the right theory or practice in place by the blend of both these approaches, that need and and return on investment, I think that would give definitely a definite picture on top of that. But the risk cannot be completely ignored, that the large language model, agentic AI, all of that needs to be tested thoroughly. You need to
Okay.
see the data compliance, security aspect before bringing that to your organization, because ultimately you are sharing the data with a
Right.
third party.
Right.
So that is an interesting topic.
It is, and I would add to that. I think absolutely we want to focus this at our main business problems. We want to solve the right business problems, and I think Suresh really covered that. I think from a QE practitioner perspective, I think we have to continue to maintain a mindset of learning and exploration. This isn't as simple as bringing in a tool in the past where it would just function the same way every time. You would learn a tool and then you would use it. I think for a while, at least, we need to be experimenting and bringing a skeptical, challenging perspective to the tool. The way testers bring that perspective to anything they test, we need
Right.
to also test this new tool and learn it over time. And really, I think it was Suresh who said, treat it like a co-pilot,
Mm-hmm.
but one that you're always keeping an eye on, because we're not sure yet exactly how it's going to fly the plane.
Sounds good. So any key takeaways for the listeners?
I think, what I always think, it's a new technology coming to you, know this technology, invest time to understand the technology. No technology is going to be perfect on day one, right? But understanding it, walking the way with it, okay, this will become another tool set in your, box, and it's a very powerful tool, So I think, interacting with AI, understanding that AI and building that capability is most important.
Thank you. Thank you, Parsar. I think to summarize, let's jump on the bus, right? Let's not stay behind.
You cannot skip
Be
it.
You cannot, right? There is no way about that. So experiment, POC, invest yourself, start learning, start working. I think that's the key takeaway that we all understand. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Hopefully, listeners are enjoying this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.